The acquisition marketing comes in waves. Like sometimes it's really good. You have seasonality. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes CPMs go up. Sometimes algorithm changes. The client service side is a lot more active listening, right? A lot more understanding, a lot more negotiating than when you're on the client side. I've brought in professionals that are really good at what they do. And let them do what they're awesome at. And they don't, when you do that, there's a little bit of magic.
So on today's episode, we go deep, really deep into subscription commerce for e-commerce. It's a great episode you do not want to miss, so do stay tuned. Hi 2Xers, welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast, and I'm your host Kunle Campbell. The 2X e-commerce podcast show is dedicated to digital commerce insights for retail and e-commerce teams. So each week on this podcast, we either get on a commerce expert, a founder of a direct-to-consumer commerce brand, or a representative from a best-in-class commerce SaaS product with a tight remit to give you ideas you can test right away on the brands you're building, so you can improve growth metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, your audience size, and ultimately your gross merchant value or sales. We are here to help you sell more sustainably. So welcome. Right. So this interview you're about to listen to is an interview I had with Evan Padgett. Now, Evan Padgett is the co-founder, or he likes to refer to himself as a partner and COO, Chief Operating Officer at Stealth Venture Labs. But that's not the full story. Now, Evan is a veteran in what I would say high growth e-commerce businesses. You know, he's worked as a COO at JustFab. He was a chief executive at JustFab and Thrive Market. I'm not sure if you know about Thrive Market. They both inherently are subscription e-commerce businesses. That's his base. And right now with Stealth Venture Labs, his agency, they are an incubator for e-commerce businesses or e-commerce ideas, as well as a growth unit to attach to e-commerce, brands you're trying to grow. They work predominantly on acquisition and acquiring and growing e-commerce brands. So he's worked with the likes of JustFab, ShoeDazzle, and Thrive Market. That's his interview. So we start off with his backstory, how the dot-com boom got him into essentially California, South California, and got him into these startups, essentially these startup environments, and how he's grown teams. Fun fact, he's managed advertising budgets of 30 million while he was at, I believe, JustFab. He's run multiple millions at his other role at Thrive Market. All in all, he's an operator. Let's put it that way. He's not someone who talks about just tactics. He can merge tactics with your P&L and your balance sheet, and he sees a bigger picture from an operational standpoint. And that is why I really connected with him in this conversation. We were, moving from business implications through to tactics. It was like a ping pong. It was real good rhythm we built over the conversation. 1 hour conversation. So brace yourself. It really just getting into what you need to do to survive now in 2022 with the drop of data most advertising platforms are getting from iOS users. We talk a lot about team building. I think that was a super powerful point why I think I asked him around what is the team required to moving from under 10 million or even from 1 million to 100 million. What are the building blocks from a team building perspective? And he went deep, real deep. We talk about subscriptions, just your expectation from a CLV standpoint from subscriptions. He gave some really good numbers. All in all, I thought this conversation was going to be like 30 minutes. It ended up being an hour for good reason. If you are thinking or you started a subscription commerce initiative, if you're on the quest of building $100 million plus e-commerce business, You should listen to this episode. You really should listen to this episode. He's speaking from the trenches. He has the experience and the battle scars to speak to everything he's saying, essentially. So, enjoy this episode. Want to give a shout out to our new sponsors, Recharge. They're the number one subscription platform or subscription app on the Shopify platform. They're with us sponsoring the show. Great product and great sponsors. Just enjoy this conversation. I'll be sharing more details about our event coming up in London in person. I'm going to see you guys. I'm going to hug. I'm going to touch. I'm going to kiss every one of you. Right. I'm excited in London, and who knows, beyond London, we might have New York editions. I definitely love the West Coast. No hate on the East Coast, but definitely want to do something on the West Coast. Want to do something in Texas. Bringing people together, bringing people, listeners of this podcast together. I'm looking forward to it anyway. So enjoy my interview with Evan Padgett from Stealth Venture Labs. Cheers. Hi, Evan. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast.
Hey, well, thank you for having me. I was about to say welcome to you, but it's your show, not mine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've had quite a fun pre-interview anyway. So we'll just jump right in. Okay. For people who really want to get to know you, I mean, you've been 20 years in the industry. That's substantial. And you speak a lot to subscription commerce, which is really, really relevant right now. But I want to kind of get to the starting days of e-commerce, those nascent days. Why did you get into e-commerce?
Well, 2002 it was a job. So I was a nerdy kid growing up, building web pages in the late 90s on Notepad on there, just freehanding code, and that's how you did it back then. You didn't have fancy tools to build web pages that would just fill in code for you. You had to close your own tags, right? So I was doing that all through high school, and just video gaming as well. Just very tech inclined. I just loved technology. The moment I saw it, and the moment I saw computers, and the moment I had a 2400 baud modem. So that is, that's very, very slow. Very, very slow modem. I was like, there's something here. Like, this is just the future, right? And I recognized that at 16, 17 years old. Had fun with it. Went to college. Was going to university to actually become a scientist. I was just intrigued by that. But one of my best friends, actually my best friend growing up that I did this nerdy stuff with, he took a job in Southern California. He actually quit high school, which I don't recommend doing. But he quit high school to take a job in Los Angeles. And yeah.
So you're Colorado based.
Yep.
Did you grow up in California?
I grew up in Oregon, north of California.
Oregon, okay.
And then I'm now in Colorado. Okay. I've been in Colorado for about 5 years now, but spent most of my career, basically 20 to 35 in Southern California, in Los Angeles.
Okay, makes sense. Okay.
So my best friend from high school, he dropped out of school to go work for this company. This would have been in like 1999. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, that's insane. He was a graphic designer and a coder as well. And he was working at this company. Years later, I reconnected with him. He was visiting, and he's 20 at the time. And I was just like, what are you doing? And, he's making good money in Southern California, and he's talking about all these things that I know about. I threw out there. I'm like about to go to university. I threw out there, well, hey, if you have any interesting jobs that you think I could do, buddy, like, let me know. He gets back there. 2 weeks later, he calls me up and says, like, hey, you want to move down here? Be a junior analyst is what I was called, working at this company that became Intermix Media. And I'll explain that because there's an interesting story there. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Like, sounds fun. I'm 20 years old, moved to Southern California. What could go wrong? Joined this company. This company was called Intermix Media, and it was most notoriously or most famous for being bought by Fox Interactive Media for the property MySpace. So I was working at the company MySpace, but I was in a totally different product market division selling all sorts of healthcare products, Simpsons bottle openers, little RC cars on the internet. And my job was running invoices. This is like the early days of the internet. So running invoices and getting IOs signed, insertion orders, right? Because you just talk to somebody on the other side. I was like, this is fascinating. I'm just in this office in a cubicle. It's very cliche, Silicon Beach style. There's an arcade in there, a bunch of 20-somethings running around, making money, basically. Fox bought that company. The people I was working with, Fox didn't care about the product marketing side. Like they wanted MySpace at the time. So they bought it from MySpace. The people that were selling products, we splintered off, and I joined with these people that started a company called Intelligent Beauty at the time, and we were selling skincare, some weaker creams. We were notorious for the ads that sideswipe, and you have a wrinkly face, and they go away. I've been there. That's millions of dollars spent on all that. I grew with the industry.
The before and afters.
Oh, before and afters, absolutely. Like you're 90, and all of a sudden you're 20 again. I helped make those ads. Okay, I did. I hand up. I did. So then, we were doing product marketing, and we were doing the same thing. And I grew, so I became a marketer. That's sort of where I became more of a marketer. I started working on landing page optimization, analyzing customers, analyzing what they're doing. Created a lot of using my tech background, being able to just sort of extract data and do some fun things with it. Grew and grew and grew. That company shifted from beauty products to fashion. I was growing with the company. I was focused on analytics. Then it became sort of the shared service head there. And that's where I grew into analytics, became analytics and member service. And I grew our customer service organization from like 30 people to had to grow to like 600 people in a few years because we were growing so rapidly.
Was that JustFab?
That was at JustFab, yeah. So JustFab, then we acquired a company called ShoeDazzle. They launched brands called Fabletics and Savage X by Rihanna, same company. So I just kept growing with the company, and we were hyper growth. And I just Adam Goldenberg, the CEO there, is a very close personal friend, and Don Ressler and mentors of mine. Honestly, I learned so much from them. And I just kind of kept taking on more responsibility. And all of a sudden, I'm running 4 departments. I'm running customer acquisition, managing about $120 million a year in advertising throughout all of our brands because we were a centralized customer acquisition team. Member service with like almost 1,000 agents. Analytics as a shared service to provide data to whomever needed it and whatever they needed it for. And market research. Just throw that in there because it's tangentially analytic related, right?
What was the third one? You said customer acquisition, member
service, analytics, and market research.
Okay.
So I was doing all those. And then finally, the day came. I got Adam came to me and said, the business is getting too big. He built JustFab. He built that company, and then he was like, "I need you to be the GM and run JustFab because he's got a purview over everything." Because we were worldwide by then. We had entities in Europe, and we were doing some stuff in Australia. It's all this stuff. So I became one of the people running the JustFab brand, running a brand. So I was managing all of a sudden a $300 million P&L. I was managing about $50 million in media that I had to be really responsible for. And we acquired ShoeDazzle in the process. So I'm running 2 teams. I had about 80 people sort of in my org.
Which is another subscription business, ShoeDazzle.
It was, yeah. It was actually ShoeDazzle came first. We built JustFab when we tried to buy ShoeDazzle and it didn't work out. And then we ended up buying them later. So success story there. That was awesome. I had a great time. I did that job for 2 years. The top job, and it was awesome. We built the company. I grew revenues, but I actually hit a point where I was like, "Hey, Adam, I've been working for you for 15 years, literally from 20 to about 35 years old. All my 20s wiped. I learned a ton, but they're gone. We were having our second kid, me and my wife. I was like, I think I need to take a little bit of a break. And like, let's transition me out. Like, you're my dear friend, still love you to death, but let's transition me out. So I transitioned out. I was going to take a year off. About 2 months into that year, I found, or I should say, I was pointed at a company called Thrive Market, and they were up and coming LA brand, sweetheart business in the area. Everyone knew about them. Hyper growth. I was like, okay, I'll jump back in, and I was the chief marketing officer there. Awesome company, amazing cause. Like I could talk forever about the people of that company, how awesome they were, the mission that they're behind. Like it's beautiful, really, and they're really doing great things. But after a year and a half, I realized that it wasn't for me. And the only reason why it wasn't for me had nothing to do with the company. It had to do with I'm at that point an operator. Like, I don't like to be just a marketer. I definitely identify as a marketer, but I like running businesses. And like, they had plenty of leadership there. I was just like, hey, Nick, this isn't going to work. I transitioned out, played around in LA for a while, and then met my business partner here at Stealth. His name's Brent Freeman. He's the founder here at Stealth. And then I sort of made that transition to the client service side from being the client for most of my career. And that's where I'm at now. And that's what we're building. And it's fun.
It's a super story there. There's a lot to unpick there.
Jump in.
Yeah, particularly the transition, the Just Fab to Thrive Markets transition. They're both, am I right in saying they're both inherently subscription-based businesses?
Very unique subscriptions, but yes, subscription businesses.
So how do they differ?
So,
in your opinion,
Just Fab, when I was there especially, it had a system of credits and basically store credit, and you were sort of on a subscription where every month we'd ask you to buy products, and if you didn't buy, you'd have a credit stored up that you could use later. So we use that to sort of help inventory, control cash, be able to give flexibility, but have revenue coming in. Thrive was a lot more. We marketed this heavily at the time, and they might still do this some, but we said, hey, we were Costco meets Whole Foods, but online. So an annual access membership instead of a membership for the products. And they were both very different in that regard, but the membership key, the membership for Thrive was the key to get through the door, so to speak. And then once you're a member, you're getting awesome products at the best prices possible.
And is it digital native Thrive Markets?
Yes,
or
digital first. They've now launched their own brand, and they have probably thousands of SKUs in their own brand now. It was just starting when I got there, so they have their own brand, but they are only digital. As far as I know, they are not in any retail. None of their products are in retail. And that company had one main goal, which I love. This is a big part of why I joined that company.
Yeah,
it was trying to solve what we call in the U.S. The food desert problem, which is people that say have gluten issues or want organic and non-GMO foods. Sometimes in the country are 40, 50, 60, 100 miles away from a place that could get those foods. We said, we're going to deliver those to you. And guess what? It's actually going to be cheaper than the processed foods, as long as you pay for the annual membership and you're ordering every week. It doesn't matter. One-time membership fee or one-time annual membership fee. And it was really driving home that organic foods and non-GMO, like all the better foods most likely for you, don't have to be more expensive.
So it's in its DNA. It's very, very values driven, and that's amplified into the products, into its offering. Essentially, I can see it here, which is pantry staples. So like plant based,
a lot of shelf stable stuff, right? Yeah, exactly. But oils, like at the time, we were pretty notoriously famous for, your first order came with a free coconut oil or a free. Is one of our first products that we made was a Thrive Market branded coconut oil. Which a lot of people with that are adverse to using vegetable oils or canola oils, and they would use coconut oil and everything. That was a big hook for us. That was our marketing hook to get people in and to try the membership out and validate the value of that membership too. And it just became evident quickly that, like, hey, this bag of chips or crisps or whatever that is organic compared to the one that's not, it doesn't have to cost 50% more. It really doesn't. Just grow, like retail stores do that, but the actual finished cost is not that different, and we can sell it for cheaper as long as we have that membership behind it. And that was beautiful. And I think they're at millions of members now and doing very, very well. Obviously, the pandemic, for better or worse, really helped that business, but they were doing really well before the pandemic. So really proud to have even been a small part of that journey.
Yeah, can't wait for them to come to the UK.
Yeah,
I'll be knocking on their doors. Interesting, very, very interesting. Just looking into, so Stealth Venture Labs, you started out with your business partner, Brent.
Yep.
So who do you serve inherently? The bootstrapper, the funded, VC-backed, commerce business?
We try to avoid too much VC-backed. Nothing against VCs, but VCs complicate things a little bit. Doesn't mean we won't work with them.
Why do VCs complicate things?
Well, they're another voice in the room, and a lot of I would say, less than experienced or sort of first time successful entrepreneurs don't do a good job or rarely do a good job managing their board, right? So if you have VCs, you got a board. If you got a board, you have people as a CEO telling you what to do, what not to do. They kind of have the purse strings proverbially. They're like, oh, you need more money. You better listen to what I say. So like a lot of that with acquisition marketing gets really complicated because we're here spending your money to try to make you more money, right? And the acquisition marketing comes in waves. Like sometimes it's really good. You have seasonality. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes CPMs go up. Sometimes algorithm changes. Sometimes iOS 14 happens, and all of a sudden VCs panic. Sometimes iOS 14.5 happens, and then VCs put a lot of heat on CEOs, and then they're like, scratch your marketing team or this other marketing team's real. So look, I'm not going to turn away business that's VC backed. We work with plenty that are. But I will say that VCs at times can complicate our dynamic with brands. So we work with, we sort of have two pillars of our business. We have what we call our Founder Lab, which is really meant for entrepreneurs that need a full service marketing team to do everything to bring their product to life. And occasionally we work with like big established brands that are like, hey, we want to expand our product line and we need a team that can turn this around in 60 days and get us to market. And they already know what they want, but they need an execution team to do it and then a marketing team to run it and do acquisition marketing and stuff. So that's our Founder Lab side. And then our Growth Lab is really more of a traditional ad agency in the sense of we're a team of people that manage your media dollars, focused on all the channels that we can control sort of behind a computer or in front of a monitor. And we're pretty good at it. And what I mean by that is I built teams that at JustFab, we were managing about $10 million a month in advertising. At Thrive, at the time, several $1 million a month in advertising. And I built a team that I would trust without those kinds of budgets. And that's what we've built here. And we work with companies that have budgets of like, $20,000 a month to upwards of $10 million a month and everywhere in between. And we provide strategy, media buying, creative post-production, creative production we're starting to get into. And that's the ability for me and my team to really, I've never been on the client side or the client service side until now. I've been that client. I've been that person looking at an agency being like, why aren't my CACs better? Or, like, can you get us going on this. I've been that person. Now I'm on the other side.
Going to the other side. Which would you term the dark side? Agency or client?
Ooh, they both, the client service side is a lot more active listening, right? A lot more understanding, a lot more negotiating than when you're on the client side. But it's got great benefits in the sense of we like it when we win and our clients win, we win. It's also, I built this company, and me and Brent have really built this company on some core principles of, for example, like just working here at Stealth, not just who we service, but working here. We have our team that doesn't have to work weekends. We don't bother them. I don't bother people. I brought in professionals that are really good at what they do. And let them do what they're awesome at. And they don't, when you do that, there's a little bit of magic there where a lot of agencies, I'm not calling any out by name, a lot of agencies sort of have people that can talk, but then the people that are actively in the accounts are so far away from the strategy that there's a loss of fidelity there. But with us, you're talking to the person that's going to then get off the call and go in the platform and make the changes. And I think that's just, it's maybe a little less margin rich on my side, but it leads to better service, which ultimately leads to collective success. So there's darkness on both sides, I would say.
That's a very.
I'm trying to be diplomatic.
Very diplomatic way of saying things. Yeah. Okay, let's delve into team building.
Yeah.
You can speak to VC setups, the Fabletics and Thrive Markets, but in 2022, if you were if you were a growing startup, you've shown some traction, and it's been really sort of bootstrapped and been just been basic essentially. how would you structure your direct to consumer e-commerce business for scale, given you're looking to grow it to the 100 million
Hmm.
plus sort of stratosphere? Who would you sort of put as you're a chief operating officer at your CEO at Stealth
Yeah,
Labs, but who would you put in the mix to make this happen? How would you
that's
structure
a
a team
great
for it?
question.
This speaking to founders essentially.
Yeah, no, I think that. So we work at Brent and I use something which I've been a part of a lot of management systems like the Rockefellers and all these different like tools that you can use to run your organization and we run something called EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. I love if I was starting a business right now and Brent and I work hand in hand with like this, they have something what's called the VI combo, Visionary Integrator. Visionaries are the creative people, the blue sky dreamers, the people that are persistent optimists that can never be turned off. Right?
Mhm.
The this is gonna change the world mentality, and my business partner Brent changes the world. He's an amazing person.
Love
Um,
that.
and then there's the integrators. So that's me in this case. Integrator makes visionary dreams come true. So I'm the person that is in there making it happen. And I think any good business. I've worked for dynamic duos in my whole career. Granted, there's only 2 other jobs before this, but at the top of Just Fab and Just Fab Inc. Or now known as Textile Fashion Group, you have Adam and Don. They were a visionary integrator combo. At the time when I was at Thrive Market, you had Nick Green. You had Sasha, who was another co-founder there, and you had a guy by the name of Gunnar Lovelace, and they were basically visionary integrator combos there as well. They had a vision, then they had people to get it done. So if I'm starting a brand right now, I look at myself as an integrator. I need a visionary to be that blue sky dreamer. Step 1, get that in place. And if you're that visionary, get yourself an integrator because that's how you make your dreams come true. Beyond building a team, beyond that, so now you got your 2 co-founders, right? You got your partnership going. When you're trying to find growth in marketing, let's just leave the fact that you need capital and all that aside. The fundamentals you need. You want a marketer that understands philosophically what you're trying to build, and that's call it your head of marketing at the time. They're probably a director or vice president level somewhere that can do anything. Like they roll up their sleeves and don't skimp out on this. Do not skimp out on your marketer if you are trying to build a direct to consumer customer acquisition focused company. Make sure from the get go you have an awesome direct marketer on your team. And an awesome direct
Mhm.
marketer on your team doesn't necessarily mean that they just follow Gary Vee's podcast and everything he's done and they've read all the books. You need practical application. I look for people that have worked at big budget brands that I know spend millions a month, because that experience is worth much more than every book you could read, every podcast you can listen to. The hands-on experience there, someone that's managed millions of dollars themselves and that's not scary to them. That's the people you need on your team that can help. If you're trying to build $100 million brand, guess what? You're spending $30-40 million a month on advertising, or $30 to $40 million a year probably on
Yeah.
advertising at a certain point.
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
it that mismanaged. You don't want that to be on the CEO or the COO, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then sort of the last piece I think you need. So you have a visionary who's looking into the future, blue sky dreaming. You have an integrator who's rolling up their sleeves and getting the team right and making sure that we're scalable, and that's usually a COO profile. You have
Mhm.
an awesome marketer. Don't forget what matters most: your customers. So you need somebody that is customer empathetic. Usually they are brand focused, that can be the voice of the customer and what the customer needs to hear, and they need to be able to shake things up even at that founder level a little bit and have a voice at the table that says, I hear you, you want to sell this for that price, but I'm going to tell you on the ground level, customers aren't going to buy that, or that's not a great customer experience. You need
Mm.
that voice of the customer in there early. If you have those 4 pieces without the nuance of like, yeah, we need technology, or yeah, we need graphic designers and all these things too. Like you need production work, but like those 4 corners of the bed sheet, in my opinion,
Mm.
would really help you build out anything. You have those 4 people in place, you could pretty
Mhm.
much build anything and
I
do
love
something
that.
really well.
I love that, Evan, because I was speaking with my business partner today. I was speaking to the fourth role you talked about to my business partner this afternoon, which was this
We didn't
customer
plan that.
experience. And yeah, we didn't, not at all. And it's really speaking to trying to get into the heads of customers essentially, because we're in it. We come every day to the office for customers.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get the insights? How are we empathetic enough to get out to them? Who is their representative? Who's in the business?
Yes, critical.
So I do have a question around for that particular role,
Yeah.
which is, would you say that person is a product market person because customer insights is part of product marketing,
Mm-hmm.
or would you boldly go and say, okay, this is a customer success role?
Good question. I think that they definitely need to have product market skills and try to find product market fit. So this person, if they're going to say this is what the customer would want or should want or is going to be that voice, I say, great, show me the data. And that's you're gonna. I'm a data focused person. In the end of the day, I don't live off of. I try to quantify everything I can in this business, and that's what drew me to this business initially. In general, so I say, great, show me the data on that. And then it's got to be hypothesis driven. It's got to be able to say, hey, I have this idea. I think customers are going to like this kind of payment model, and here's why. Great. Get some customers on it and show me what it looks like. Show me their LTV. So they have to be able to find product market fit, and be able to negotiate that through the proper channels to say, hey, here's what the user experience and onboarding looks like. Here's how we educate the customers about what our product is. The benefits it provides. So one thing that marketers, I think the biggest mistake, little tangent, but the biggest mistake marketers marketers want to talk about the features of their product. They don't talk about the benefits enough. And like when we're where I'm sitting here at Stealth, when we bring in our clients, we look, and the most people having trouble coming to us, they have this problem where, take a meal at home company, a feature of meal at home, food shows up at my door. And it's good food. Those are features. Those are like the table stakes. But what's the benefit? Well, the benefit is I don't have to go to the grocery store anymore.
Yeah.
It takes me 2 minutes to cook this food, so now I have more time to spend with my family, with my friends. It's convenient. I'm eating healthier and living a healthier life, right? Maybe with your meal at home company, right? Like depending on their focus. Mm-hmm. That's a benefit. That's what people are looking for. They're not looking for the features. The features you could rattle off. That doesn't make you unique. The benefits of what your product is what makes it come to life. And that's where a lot of brands, when we look at their ads, and it's just like, oh yeah, same day shipping and arrives in 2 days. And it's like, great, but you're not talking about the benefits that provides me. That means I don't have to go to the store. That means I don't have to miss my kid's soccer game because dinner's going to be ready, right? So that's one piece that I'd mention there, is just like, that's one marketing thing that we see missed time and time again. But that all comes back to that person in that product marketing role needs to be able to understand that. So they're not just talking features of what your product does. They're talking about how that product, especially in subscription, makes your life better.
And where are the key feedback outputs for that role? I'm thinking into like further product optimization and then customer experience.
Yep.
And probably the website, so pre-purchase, being there, post-purchase, being there after, if shit, hits the fan after a purchase, being there, and then, product improvements, and just experience essentially, it has to feed their output has to feed into key components of business to really optimize it, right?
Yeah, so I think their output is they got to be data driven. They're definitely more of an integrator mindset, analytic minded. So they're looking at the data, they're adjusting based off of data, generating new hypotheses to test and experiment with. They have to be able to deliver that message to production, meaning your designers or tech, in such a way that's not like, make this site prettier. That doesn't help. Right? It needs to say, hey, I want to move the call to action here. I want to try a different hero product there. And here are the headline and the sub headlines that I want to run. Right? And they need to be able to articulate that. And it doesn't mean they're writing it themselves necessarily, depending on your company, right? But they know something's amiss. They know when it's going to look right to fit their hypothesis, and they're delivering that. So their output is that. Their output is data on that. And they have to be of a mindset of Like one of the best people I ever worked with, this guy by the name of Ryan Heller, who's the chief marketing officer at Fabletics now. And there's a competitive nature there. And the competition in this case is with yourself, looking at okay, we got to win. What's our next win? I'm not satisfied with that win. I'm not satisfied with that. And they're looking to constantly evolve the product, and they're competing with their own results. And that is super rare. Just in general, that is a hard thing to find, because there's a sense of I ran the race and the race is over. Good job, everybody.
Put your feet up.
Put my feet up and be like, let's just enjoy this win. It's like, awesome. We got to win. How do we make this better? Never satisfied. And that's like, so he's one of the best I've ever worked with that did that. And I try to find that in other people that we're hiring, because that means that they will never stop pushing the ball forward for your company, and you need to appreciate them, because they can be the difference in your company being okay to being incredibly successful, because they are on the ground being an agent for change and not just talking about the things that can happen. They're like, I'm 10 tests deep and I got 10 more coming, and here's what we're testing, and I'm going to deliver results. And they take more from losses than they do from wins. They say, okay, this lost, but why? Yeah, but why did it lose? And then they're pushing that, and they're saying, okay, I was wrong about this. Let's try this. And they get up, do it again. Like that is a changer for your business. So finding that person and having them be not so high up that they're just talking, because that's the graduation point. When you're an executive, you're just putting things into action usually, but they're in there and they're making change happen, and that will make your business so much better.
Incredible. That's an amazing insight. Amazing insight. Just constant improvement. I can't let you go even without actually speaking to like subscriptions and retention and its place in commerce. Obviously, are you a fan of Shopify? I'd just like your opinion. Just top.
Yeah, pretty big fan. Pretty big fan.
Okay, right. So in the just in the ecosystem, with the rise of Shopify, some may beg to differ now with their share price, going down. But with the general rise of Shopify and just D2C e-commerce, they do embody this mission of D2C business, D2C e-commerce. Where do subscriptions sort of fit at the moment? How do you see subscriptions in the ecosystem of e-commerce? It's a staple in SaaS, as we all know. But in e-commerce, where does it sit?
So this is sit back and enjoy this answer. E-commerce and subscription commerce. Subscription commerce does a lot of things, and I'm such a big fan of it. I've been doing it for 20 years, so yeah, my bias is there. But subscription commerce creates predictable revenue, creates a relationship with consumers that is more than just a transaction in and out of your store, and has to live up to a certain set of promises. Meaning, right now in the world that we live in, you can't just throw stuff in a box and ship it to customers and say, here's your stuff. You got to be a company that has its own identity, because you are now most likely, for most subscriptions, optional. But you're saying, let's have you give me money as a company. Yeah, let's have you give me money for a while, and I'm going to deliver on this promise time and time and time again. And customers are fickle. If you miss on that promise, they will remember that, they will talk about that, and they won't let you live it down. So Shopify, to bring this back to Shopify. Shopify is an amazing platform to just get a business off the ground. I think it's one of the most friendly e-commerce platforms out there, as far as its ability to work for my first business to my $100 million business or more. Like, they really do have a broad scale. And then I am personally biased on the Recharge app for subscriptions. It covers most use cases.
They're about to sponsor our show.
This month. Hey! There we go. So, also unplanned. But my company, namely Brent, he's very close with Oshin there, and Brent was like one of the first customers to ever use Recharge when it first came out. My business partner, and it covers most use cases. Like, everyone, like, subscriptions can get really unique and kind of out there, and I may not be able to do everything, but 95% of subscriptions you can handle with that platform, and it works really well. And it's so easy to use. You can, I've shown this to people several times over. I've given them, we have something here at Stealth. I'm going to plug part of what we do here at Stealth. We have something called the Impact Lab. It's our nonprofit 501c3. And what we do is we created an academy for people to launch their own businesses and teach them step by step for inner city kids here in the U.S. how to launch their business. And we actually fund them with like their first $5,000 in advertising. But we built a product to show them how to launch from ideation on Shopify and then all the way to delivery using all the apps that we would recommend, and get businesses off the ground, because it's so easy and you can actually do it yourself over a weekend. And I've done this myself over weekends. My business partner has. Like, once you do it once, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, just click. I need assets. You got to get all your stuff in a row. But then, like, building an actual working store over a weekend, it's amazing. And it'll look good. You can make a good looking store. You can market that store. You could decide on a Friday night what your business you're going to build, and if you got inventory, you could be selling it on Monday. Like, it's cool. It's so cool to me. Like, I come from like
it's freedom. It's freedom. It's absolute freedom.
I came from like the early 2000s where it was like a business. The first thing I had to go do was find $1 million from somebody to be able to go get a developer to build me e-commerce store and to go hire all these people. It's like, if you got the stuff, you can launch your stuff over a weekend. Like, that's amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, big fan. Shopify.
Amazing. Speaking to subscriptions again, the topic of subscriptions and like a product stack, like your product offering to your customers. So for listeners who are like, well, screw it, my products don't really lend themselves to subscriptions. We sell, this and that. We sell, really chunky items or what have you, how would you, from your experience, how would you start to think about subscriptions at a product stack level, product offering level, in order to really driving that predictability from a customer relation standpoint, which obviously translates to revenue long term? So
there are very, very, very few businesses out there I don't think could have some form of subscription or recurring revenue model attached to them. And I get this challenge every so often. And I look at, even if your product, for whatever reason, say your physical product doesn't necessarily lend itself to subscription. Maybe it's incredibly chunky. Maybe it's very valuable, or Rolex. Maybe they're not going to have a recurring revenue model anytime soon. However, I don't know this for a fact. I bet they might have a recurring revenue model, and it's in the form of service. Maybe it's in the form of extra content. It's a form of they could. It may not be in their brand. They could create something where, like, hey, you buy a Rolex and you can join this club to also be able to go to any Rolex store and they'll fully clean and refurbish your watch. And you bought a $50,000 watch. What's another $500 a year, $50 a month to make sure it stays in perfect working order, right? So I just pulled that one out, right? Like, so you can. There's a hesitancy to it because running a subscription business and recurring revenue business is hard. It's harder than just having a store with doors open and you say, hey, pick what you want and I'll ring you up at the counter, so to speak, right? But it's so much more rewarding because the predictability of your revenue, the ability to have a deeper relationships with the customers that you do have in the form of communications, in the form of loyalty to them, in the form of authentic consumer emotions towards your brand and what it stands for, it's just so much more worth it. So there are very, very few brands. I can't even really think of one off the top of my head where you couldn't find a way to create a recurring model. But what you need to do if you're trying to get one is look at what could you provide your customers that they would need on at least a quarterly basis. And I'd say subscriptions don't have to be monthly. They could be annual. Thrive Market was an annual subscription. They don't have to be monthly.
True. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Quarterly models. I love quarterly models because quarterly consumer packaged goods, because monthly stuff can get overwhelming. I think I would say anecdotally, this is a full disclosure and off the hip stat, but So not necessarily totally true, but I would say a majority of monthly subscriptions, the customers that churn out, they churn out because they have too much of your stuff, unless it's a total consumable, like it's food or something they got to eat or
Yeah.
it spoils. They just have too much stuff. But quarterly paces that out. The moment you're 2 or 3 boxes deep, let's say you're 6 months in, your 7th month and 8th month are like, I got too much stuff and I got to cancel or come back to it later. But quarterly, you're only getting 4 shipments a year or 5, including the
Yeah.
first shipment, right?
Yeah.
Chances are you're not overly using that product. There's a good balance there. It's great for fashion. We see that a lot with fashion brands that do deliver sort of quarterly trends instead of trying to do monthly. So your business subscription does not mean a monthly bill. It could be an annual bill. It could be a quarterly bill. It could be a semi-annual bill. But you
Mhm.
can find something that your business can do that would just that you can spend money on. Say I need to have a personal stylist. Say someone wants us to have
Yeah.
a personal stylist service. Well,
Yeah.
we'll charge you $50 a quarter, and you get
Yeah.
a 1 hour consultation with a stylist, and you're paying that stylist $20-$30 an hour. Somebody
Yeah.
what no but there's additional revenue there, and it's also going to increase your
Yeah.
LTV because that stylist
Absolutely.
at cost
Yeah.
could then convince
Uh,
that customer to buy 20% more things, and boom, you just added 20% to your LTV. So
yeah, makes sense. A brand I work closely with, what they do, they sell like automotive, DIY
mm,
paint,
mm-hmm,
for sprays for your car. And what they did is they created a membership, right? And that membership gives you like 5% off purchases, which is sort of encouraging that repeat customer rate,
mm-hmm,
and then it gives them a series of perks like expedited shipping. So it's like an Amazon Prime of
mm-hmm,
sorts. You pay per year, and there's net saving obviously for the customer if they don't spend to a certain threshold. But because they've put that upfront payment there,
yep,
they tend to be better repeat
mm-hmm.
customers, if that makes sense. Their purchase frequency kind of bubbles up, and it's good for everybody. Really, they get product, and they get discounted product. They buy more often, and there's more net revenue per customer off the back of that, which is interesting in itself. But it hasn't sort of hit critical mass. It's just for certain cohorts of customers, which brings us to my next question, which is, in your opinion, or from your data at Venture Labs, what is good? What's a good customer retention rate for a non-subscription business, and what is the potential if they were to take subscriptions or subscription
Mm-hmm.
commerce a bit more seriously?
Got it. I think so there's a wide range for non-subscription, but I would say on average, if you're getting sort of 2 to 3 orders per year from a customer on a non-subscription basis for say
Hmm.
consumer packaged goods, online e-commerce company. When I say online, I mean online vertically native online.
Yeah. Hmm.
Not dealing with the complications of omni-channel, but you're getting 2 to 3 purchases a year. Your customer LTV is AOV times 3. Okay, great. Like that's good. That would sort of be anything less than 2. You got to it's going to be hard to spend advertising on, because I'm always looking at like, okay, 3 or more purchases a year, you can spend some money on advertising to acquire them. You have margin for that, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Subscription on average on a sort of, even if it's quarterly. So I use this number all the time. I obviously have a lot more data on subscription. The average customer on subscription is about 5.25 to 5.5 orders per year. Now, if they're on quarterly, it's 5.25 orders per lifetime, which kind of goes into about a year and a half. But that has been a tried and true blended average for online subscription consumer packaged goods. Higher for things like meal at home, things that are consumable.
Hmm.
So that more orders, definitely a lot more orders per year for that. But if I say consumer packaged goods, um, you're talking about a double LTV. And you're also talking about, with an LTV that's double, here's the beauty of it. Again, you can spend advertising on that. You can't
Yeah.
spend advertising when you don't have the margin, which is a lot of how e-commerce is, because there's no guarantee on those subsequent orders. If your ROAS has to be usually 3 or more for it to even make sense, just to
Hmm.
acquire a customer and to make a little bit of money. You have to be sure you make that money. But
Hmm.
subscription, you could break even on that first order. Most subscription brands technically are in the red on that first order, and then they don't make their money back after advertising till like order 3. But then everything after order 3, orders 4, 5, and 6, pure margin, more customers, more predictability. So you're not overbuying inventory. It's just the predictability comes at a cost of labor, but the predictability makes everything so much easier to run your business.
Makes a lot of sense. What are your thoughts on like subscription maximalist brands where it's subscriptions or nothing? I think JustFab had a similar model, or Shoe Dazzle, versus we sell to any and everybody. And by the way, you can subscribe to save.
Yep. So subscribe to save is, or just sort of, I guess, subscriptions for nothing versus subscriptions for a physical, physical product. Your service, or whatever you provide for that nothing, has to be I think you have to put a little bit more effort into the relationship you build with the customer. They have to get intrinsic value in your company based on, say, what you stand for, what you do, or know that they can extract value for that down the road in the form of, hey, I'm not ordering today, but I'm going to order later. This was sort of at the time, the JustFab model of like, hey, you're not going to order this quarter, that's fine, but now we have your money and you have a credit, you can order later. So the complicated part, right, is you just have to deal with making sure you live up to customer expectations, and they don't care. The customer's money goes out of their bank account all the same. They need to be able to know that when they look at, why am I spending this money per month, per quarter, or whatever, am I getting the value out of that? Am I really getting the value out of that? Or will I get the value out of that? And it almost doesn't matter if it's a consumer packaged good or not. If it's consumer packaged good, at least you're like, all right, I got this thing in my hand. I got a thing. I feel better about I didn't waste my money. It's not just gone in the ether. But the service you have to provide, or the cause that you have to stand behind as a company, if you're not giving them a physical good, or if it's a service, or if it's something like, look at Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, the most obvious sort of non-physical biggest subscription that there probably is, but look at what you do get with it. Like, I have mixed feelings about consumer packaged goods on Amazon, but the fact of the matter is, Amazon, for that $10, $12 a month, or whatever it is a year at this point, you get ultra fast shipping, you get extra support, you have movies, you have all these things that Prime is the pass that gets you into a lot of things, and it's a hard value to beat, because even if I don't watch, there's a month that I don't order from Amazon, which I don't know if that exists, but if something like that happens, I still know I have value from it. I still know I have a bunch of movies I could watch. I still know that I'm going to get that value later, and I feel like I've always gotten value out of that. So if you, and they're the prime example of that. Wow. I didn't even mean to say prime in that way, but prime example of that. But it's true though. It's true, because what do you get for that $10 a month? Well, everyone's answer is going to be different, right? But
absolutely,
you get something.
Yeah, you do. That value stack mentality, and continuously stacking it up regardless, always thinking about what are the synergies. So one of the things we discussed with them, I don't know whether they've actioned it as yet, was partnering up with other frenemy brands, and then getting their discounts in, so there's a stack. So if people buy these spray kits, they might want to buy wheels, alloy wheels. So have you partnered with them? So it creates this circle of value. It's kind of like sometimes, when, I don't know whether you do it in the States, but like when I order, so I subscribe to certain things. So when I order, when I have a subscription box coming, the pamphlets as direct mail in the pack for other brands, probably funded by the fund of this particular commerce brand. And it's all crisp. It's all very congruent. The experience when you're looking at the other offers from other brands, they're not run by the same CEO or same team, but it's all just synergizing really, which makes a lot of sense. Which takes me to my next question, which is
it's a great way to increase LTV as a brand though. So you partner with other brands. You say, hey, I'm gonna charge you 50 cents to put your flyer in my box. You're already shipping out that box. Now you subsidize 50% or 50 cents on the cost of shipping that box. You ship
Exactly.
if you're a bigger brand and you're shipping out 100,000 boxes a month. That's $50,000 in margin you could have just by saying. And a brand's going to be like, say you sell sunglasses, and another brand sells watches, and they're not directly competitive. But you say, hey, people that buy sunglasses, they have a high propensity to buy a watch. Everybody can win with that. So like those I've been in charge of a lot of those programs over time, and those start materially adding up to just margin dollars. So I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah, and they tend to have like unique codes to claim, trial
QR
offers,
codes, use this code.
Yeah,
and it all tracks back. It's beautiful.
Measurability. So speaking about credit systems and the really important point you spoke to on value, which is, people just need to know that, look, even if there's no utility this month, there's utility long term. What are your thoughts on a credit system? And does like Recharge's current, offering support it? Or with Shopify, can you implement some sort of, bank? Essentially, it's a bank.
Yeah, so
credit.
in my experience from this, I don't know if Recharge or Shopify natively has some of that capability. I will say this, from my time in JustFab in the past, having a credit system running a business gets very complicated. And I'm going to butcher some of this because I can't pretend to be a total expert on it, but you have what's called deferred revenue. Deferred revenue is money that's in your bank that's that's sitting on your balance sheet, but it's not really yours yet because so you need, it gets complicated. There are ways to do it, and it's probably different in the UK versus here in the States, I know, but like in order for you to truly have that revenue, cash in the bank, it's great to fund your business. It's great. You have deployable cash for future orders and things like that. But how VCC deferred revenue, how if you're hoping to be big enough to be on Wall Street someday, sees deferred revenue, can be a challenge to explain your deferred revenue and how it sits on your balance sheet, because you'll say, we did 1 million in sales this month. Oh, really cool. But then it's like, well, how much of that is credits? And they're like, well, it's $400,000 in credit. How much of that credit's still on your balance sheet? Well, we have like 1.2 million in credit on our balance sheet right now. And then all of a sudden you have this gigantic thing of deferred revenue that unrealistically can never really be like, there's not going to be a run on that deferred revenue. But with how your business looks, there's just a part of that that's never realized yet. And all subscriptions, like a prepaid subscription, even just a prepaid subscription, like if you pay for a year of a product, the way that company accrues that is on your P&L is, say it's $50 a month and the whole year is $600. Well, you got $600 in cash, but on that first month you have $550 in deferred revenue from that, and then the next month is $500, and you deprecate out of that deferred revenue account. That's predictable, but a building system of deferred revenue can be tricky for your business. It's great for cash flow, but it can be hard to explain to investors. It can also be a pretty big liability on if you spend that cash too early, you don't have inventory, the ability to buy inventory. So I would say it's great. However, proceed with caution and make sure that you are accounting and create a way to recognize deferred revenue, which is things like, here's some mechanisms that I know have been employed in the past are, after a period of time, say 18, 24 months, you issue a gift card back for any credit that people have. And then you have breakage on those gift cards down the road. People don't spend them or whatever. But now you get to claim that revenue. And that revenue is not sitting in your balance sheet, but it's now claimable revenue. So you need a mechanism to do that. There's some tricky ways to do that, fun ways, I should say, not in a bad way. I don't mean tricky in a bad way, on the blockchain to do that. But that's a whole different can of worms to go into about how to make that work on the blockchain.
Is enjoying this conversation, thus far. So in the Shopify ecosystem, are there any solutions for?
So I think you could build that out. There's a couple ways you could do that. With Recharge, I believe you could. I don't want to overspeak on this, so I will say that I'm like 85% sure. You could basically create a subscription with a virtual product, and then you would need some mechanism to retrieve or spend the credit that you've put in on virtual products for, say, a physical product. It would probably, in the shortest term, require some manual intervention, and then if not, you'd have to build your own app to sit on top of Recharge to basically run that balance of like, hey, I'm Evan. I'm on this product. It's a virtual good. I'm paying $15 a month, and then some reconciliation of when I finally spent 45 of those dollars. There has to be some
Mm-hmm.
checks and balances. So I think it's going to have to be an app that sits outside of that. Recharge can do the billing. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that they can create the credit bank. At that point, I would also say, and as much as I love Recharge to death, if you're building something like that, you might want to look at natively the Shopify subscription API, and might just want to start by building your own sort of FIFO, first in, first out tech to monitor income in, create reporting for any deferred revenue balance and the debit of that. And then you could do things like, hey, I have this, I built in Shopify that somebody has X number of valid store credit that's building based on this credit system, and then they deprecated that with an order. There's got to be an app that logs that transaction, reduces that liability, and then it shows up on your balance sheet, right? Or it shows up in your
Right.
P&L.
So there has to be a reporting system on deferred revenue.
Yeah, and I don't
From
think I don't think Shopify or Recharge does that out of the gate. I could be wrong, but I
natively.
don't think they do.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Right. We could go on and on like this super interesting conversation. I actually thought it was going to take 30, 40 minutes.
I have a
We're going to an
propensity
hour
to
now.
go long. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So being respectful of your time, just one more question on your thoughts around this post iOS 14.5 world we're living in. Acquisition. Facebook. I think they have a haul of 10 billion thus far. They did mention that this is going to affect small businesses.
Yep.
How should you future proof yourself as a D2C e-commerce business?
I think we're in the middle. Yeah, I think what's happening now. This is the start of just a major shift in advertising. We've had a few of these throughout the years. Major Facebook algorithm changes, the actual launching of Facebook's advertising platform way back when, and every result has sort of been the same. And here's what we're doing. For one, channel diversification. It can't be stated enough. Places like Snapchat, TikTok, rates are cheap. And CPMs on Facebook for like kind audiences that we've been able to measure, in some cases up over 100% year over year. So Facebook's going to try to fix that hole. Like, I can't speak for Facebook, but $10 billion in lost revenue seems low, if I'm being honest. But two, what they're going to do to fix that hole is they got to find more advertising spaces. And I don't know, I could say I've noticed that, like, when I'm going through Insta stories, I have runs now where I'll see 3 ads in a row. Like, just straight up swiping through if I'm moving too fast, right? So they're going to create more advertising placements to try to find ways to monetize and keep people spending. With that should come CPM decreases because there's more inventory out there. We'll see if that manifests itself. But channel diversification, regardless, Facebook's still a world-class marketing platform. Small businesses are going to have struggled the most because you need a little bit more capital to get that traction and for the Facebook algorithms and everything to learn. But get in on other channels while you can. TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest even, which is not new, but you can make that work now. The rates on them are much more attractive. So that's one. Two, work on attribution. And you can triangulate pretty well, even in the absence of Facebook data, between, say, using Shopify, using GA with UTM tags properly placed on all of your ads, and using Facebook and Facebook API information. You can still get a pretty good read, say, call it 60-ish% fidelity on what you used to have by just being on last click attribution, and be able to track it back to channel performance. And then you need to be managing your business to a degree on, so that's part 2A. 2B is you need to be managing your business on a fully blended basis. So we've been working with our clients on that. Like, we, of course, are focusing on channel performance, but we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face as far as like blended. If blended's working good, things are good. Even if Facebook says it's not doing that well, we break Facebook. Guess what? Google organic goes down because people look your product up. That happens, right?
Yeah.
So that's number 2. Is get your data and attribution in place. And then number 3 is up your creative game and really emphasize, like, you can't just run a single frame image that's got a starburst in the corner that says 50% off, join today. Really, really listen to your consumers and make ads that are relevant to them and also relevant to the platform. If you're running TikTok ads on Facebook or Facebook ads on TikTok, you're doing it wrong. Like, you got to put in the extra effort and say, TikTok has a different type of engagement, needs a different kind of ad than Facebook does. Even Facebook and Instagram kind of need their own little ad unit there, even though they're both running stories. But like, don't be lazy. Really put time into educate people about your product. Have a lot of fun with your creative. Be experimental, and don't accept just, here's my image, here's a starburst, 50% off. And that doesn't work either. So if you do those 3 things well, you'll find a way to make your marketing work.
Yep. Incredible stuff. Even I could go on and on and on. Just want to thank you for coming on the 2x e-commerce podcast show. Probably not the last time you'll be coming. We might when something happens again, we might just have you back again
anytime.
For those who want to find out more about Stealth Venture Labs, who want to follow you, are you active, you yourself active on any major channels? By the way, the website is Stealth Venture Labs, STEALTHVANTURE labs.com.
World's longest name.
Are you active on any social media platforms?
Yeah, so you find me on LinkedIn. I wouldn't say I'm to the point of being a prognosticator there yet, but I will occasionally post a good gem. But feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I just love talking about this industry. I feel like I've been in it forever, so I'm always available to answer a question. Evan at Stealth Venture Labs if you'd like to reach out to me. Also, if I could say one more thing, is we are, as I mentioned, we have a 501c3. You can find information about that on our site. We love taking donations to help put more kids through this, because we have a very firm belief in our company about entrepreneurialism starts young, and there are a lot of kids that don't have the ability to launch their own business, and we're fixing to change that. So you can read more about it on our site, but if people out there want to donate, we are a fully fledged 501c3, it's tax deductible and all that. We love that because we're trying to build the entrepreneurs of the future and make sure that everybody out there has a chance. So
love it, absolutely love it, and we'll have a conversation after this for sure on that, on the Impact Lab. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you,
and cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.